Hello, every pony. It's that time of the week, kind of. In celebration of the season 5 premiere, I'm going to be reading a fan fiction about the town, the unnamed town, because it was such a cool, totalitarian Russian-y government that I thought it was cool. So this is Neither Brass Nor Bold by John Perry. Shall I speak of our town unnamed, where strife and hate become so tamed? This plain town, neither brass nor bold, glass or gold, free of the world's blight, here I found my guiding light. Reach no more, no one is above. We are united in the common love. Shall I weep of woes from my past? Not here, my dread has gone at last. Here, Glimmer, a pony so wise, showed me truth and saw through my guise. Life before brought me such pain, before I found this town so plain. She saw hurt and took me in, my woes forgotten, here among kin. Shall I scream, "What good is a life?" when one knows no peace, when filled with strife? No honor, nor friends among thieves, all efforts wasted when peers deceive. All was lost, my work all for naught, my pleas ignored, silence soon taught. But all that is now behind me. Now I can forgive. Now I am free. Shall I sing of this town of no name, where every pony can be the same? We all here, freed from desire, we know no hardship, free from mire. Here no pride nor arrogance shall split. We are all equal. We all can fit. We greet all from wherever you roam. To those who arrive, I say, welcome. The stallion put down his quill and looked over his words. No, it didn't have quite the same flair as his work before he came to this town. But then, he was out of practice, he reasoned. Besides, it would do. Excelling was the false virtue of his old life. Here, adequacy was enough. A shiver of excitement ran down his form. How much had changed in such a short amount of time? It was not so long ago that such a thought as embracing adequacy would have been alien to him. How obsessed he had once been with perfection, with pleasing his superiors, and trying to make a name for himself. Not here. Here, his name was only utilitarian, in purpose, and nothing more was expected of him than any pony else. Here, he wasn't ignored or dismissed, but accepted at face value. And all it cost him was a silly mark. He glanced down at the equal sign on his flank, and then around his room, at the standard issue bed and furniture that looked identical to those of every pony else in the village. His peers back in Manhattan would have scoffed at it for being drab and dull. But in fact, this room was larger than his Manhattan apartment. His gaze wandered over to the window, at the row of houses across the town's single street, all equal in standing. It really was a wonderful place, despite what any pony may have thought of it. It had only been a couple of weeks, but he already felt like he had lived there for years. Yes, it was a little bereft of Keller, and it didn't have the excitement of the big city, but that was a small price to pay for acceptance. He looked back at his writings, smiling as he imagined presenting them to Starlight Glimmer tomorrow morning. He was sure she would love hearing his praise. It was the least he could do for her, after the new life she had granted him. Maybe she would even read his work in front of the whole village. He could now imagine her reciting his words in front of her house. The rest of the village assembled in the street out front, wearing their constant grins, nodding in agreement with the words as he stood beside Glimmer, relishing in their attention. No, that would be wrong. His imaginings quickly dissolved, as his eyes snapped open and he felt a dull throb on his flanks. If everyone listened to his words alone, would that not elevate him above the rest of the villagers? Then there would be inequality, and what had been so carefully built here could be threatened. He looked at his words in new light. Was that why he had written this? For attention? A sudden dread settled into the pit of his stomach. How could he be so arrogant? Could he have been so pretentious, vying for approval just like his peers back in Manhattan? No, that couldn't be it. Perhaps this could still be saved. He didn't need the attention of the other villagers. Tomorrow he could just deliver his poem to Starlight Glimmer for her to read by herself. Yes, that would do. That dull throb in his flanks returned. No, that would be merely to court favor with the founder of his village behind every pony else's back. That was the sort of thing those deceitful social climbers back in Manhattan would do. But that wasn't why he was doing it, right? He stared down at his words, searching for a reasonable explanation as to why he had written them. Maybe he simply wanted to express his gratitude to Starlight Glimmer. But did he really think she didn't already know? Her acceptance, her friendship was already granted, as was that of every pony else in the village. He didn't have to earn it anymore. He had already done that when he gave up his mark. Perhaps he could deliver them to her in secret. Then he wouldn't be calling attention to himself. But then, wouldn't that be deceitful? A shudder passed through him, and he quickly banished the thought. But if not for attention or for acceptance, why would he write these words? Could it be that he desired to be different? To be seen as better than those around him? A cold shame washed over him. How could he be so foolish? How could he be so blind not to see his own selfish instincts trying to rule him as they did those who had hurt him before? He stared down at his words, now with grim determination. He picked up the pages in his hooves, then slowly but deliberately tore them in half. A pang went through his heart, but he pressed on, ripping them in half a second time, and then a third, before dropping them onto the desk. He closed his eyes and inhaled slowly, trying to quell his quickly beating heart, then exhaled. He looked solemnly at the shreds of parchment littering his desk. Not until now did he truly understand how much of his old life had followed him here, or what he had to sacrifice to free himself of it. The shreds of parchment were unceremoniously swept into the waste bin beside his desk. He rose from his chair, turned around, and breathed a sigh of relief. No, it hadn't been easy to cast his work away, but he had suppressed temptation and perhaps retained his place in the community. It was just another sacrifice that had to be made for acceptance. Clearly, he was not as much a local as he had thought. He mused as he headed for bed. There was much he still had to learn about being truly equal to his fellow villagers. He lay up his head upon his pillow, already picturing tomorrow when he would wear a large grin and share in that subdued but enduring joy they surely all felt living here. Yes, time here would heal his wounds. Eventually, he would learn freedom from want. But he couldn't keep himself from sparing the occasional pained glance at his waste bin. He tossed and turned under his sheets, uneasily awaiting a dreamless sleep. No author's note. That was awesome. Snaps to you. Oh my god. One thing with the episode that like I had a difficult time with was that it it wasn't like it was an alternative. Like I didn't feel like, because it was just an evil bad guy controlling everything, right? Rather than, oh, here's another thing, but there are problems with that. And this was more adult and actually made me go like, wow, maybe equality isn't the worst thing. It sounded like his life really sucked before he came to this town. And that was awesome. Yeah. That was really cool. And like, I didn't know what I was going into. I thought he was going to talk about how like, oh my god, it sucks so bad. But he was like, no, here are the benefits. And then it, that was such a cool, the way he like controlled himself. Like, I don't know if you read 1984, but the way he like used like doublethink and such and crushed his own thoughts. That was a trip. Wow. That was awesome. I think I'm going to go read another one now about Starlight. Because all the other fan fictions are about after Starlight. And it's all about Starlight. Nothing about the town. This was like, I think the only one. At least that was good. Cool. I've been good. The last week for spring break, I just toured LA for music industry colleges. And I'm really excited. Northridge looks pretty good. But, you know, University of Southern California is baller too. Yeah, that's cool. Hoping to come out with the album some point this year. Alrighty. Have a good day. That was awesome. That was just really good. I really enjoyed that.